Today, I am thrilled to welcome Xander Keg to kick off the practitioner well-being component of the series. As the airlines say, we need to put on our oxygen masks before we can help others. The practitioner well-being series is designed to do just that. Over the next few weeks, we'll explore strengthening emotional intelligence and cultivating mental fitness. We'll learn more about conflict management and develop tools to avoid burnout and navigate uncertainty. Today, we're exploring what it means to be trauma-informed and how this framework can assist our inclusion efforts. I'm honored that Xander will lend his unique talents to the program. Xander Keg is an award-winning social worker, author, educator, and speaker. He co-founded the LGBTQ Caregiver Center and is a senior fellow and advisor with the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. Xander combines his background in conflict analysis and resolution, clinical social work, and theological systems to provide subject matter expertise in emotional wellness, personal growth, organizational conflict management, and more. I'll let Xander share a little bit more about himself as I turn the mic over to him. Welcome, Xander, and thanks again to all of you for joining our program.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. It's an honor to be here, and I'm really looking forward to be able to kick off the series for the wellness webinars. Let me just jump right in. So Rebecca had a lot to say about me in the introduction. Here's just a little bit more about me, just so you know where I am, where I'm situated within the larger LGBTQ community. I am a transsexual man. I transitioned at age 39 medically. Prior to that, I was part of lesbian community since 16 years of age. So I have been in the community for quite some time. I actually worked at Out and Equal many years ago for a couple of years as a part-time employee in the very beginnings of my transition, actually. So it was a wonderful experience for me to be able to be in that kind of supportive and nurturing environment while I was going through the first couple of years of transition, which can be a little challenging in a lot of different workplaces, especially back in 2005, 6, and 7. So thank you, Out and Equal. So just a little bit more about me. I am a service-connected disabled veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. I'm licensed in California and Florida as a licensed clinical social worker, and I do now freelance work. So I'm doing emotional wellness and mental fitness facilitation and coaching. That's what I do full-time now. So that is my work. And I've been involved with WPATH for a number of years. And so you can see there, I'm a certified member. I'm also a faculty member, and I sit on their ethics committee. So just a little bit more about me. When we talk about wellness, especially mental wellness or emotional wellness, physical wellness, any kind of wellness you can think of, what's typically involved in this is thinking about ways that we can reduce our stress, ways that we can manage our conflict, ways that we can communicate more effectively, ways that we can find to relax. And so there's a lot of things that contribute to all of those things in our life. And so there's a lot of techniques that can be used to help us relax and de-stress. And so you might be doing meditation, you might be doing yoga, you might be taking walks out in nature, and you might be doing breathing exercises. Breathing exercises are a really helpful and beneficial way to manage our stress and also to calm us and give us an opportunity to just take a pause. And in the ways that our lives are, as hectic and busy as they can be, demanding as they can be, being able to carve out a time each day, maybe a few times a day, to take a pause and catch your breath and do some intentional breathing exercises are going to be really helpful. So I want us to start off with a breathing exercise so that we can get grounded, and then we can be more present to the rest of the information I'll be providing to you. So you've been noticing on the screen there, this blue circle getting larger and smaller, and we can use that. You can see there's even a website there, quietkit.com. That's where you can get it. This is an animated GIF. And this is a really helpful tool for a breathing technique called box breathing. And box breathing is a technique that I used when I worked at the Navy. They use it with the Navy SEALs and a lot of other people within the military. And so as a social worker who worked in that environment, I took it and I now bring it into the work that I do out here in the community. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure you're seated, because I don't want people to maybe become dizzy or lose their balance. So please do sit down. And what you're going to do is you're going to take in a breath as you see the blue, not right now, but as you see the blue dot get bigger, you're taking in a breath. As it stays big, you're holding your breath. And then as it gets smaller, again, you're blowing out your breath. As it stays small, you hold your breath. So let's breathe in now. And hold your breath. And breathe out. And hold again. And I'll stop talking now. Just follow the ball. Let's do one more round. So that is box breathing. I'd love to know in the chat box, how did that feel? How did it feel to do that? To just take a moment, to pause, and do some intentional breathing. You can send this to me by hitting the little arrow next to everyone and sending it just to me. It's either my name or it says host panelists. Just like to see, how was that experience for you? Good, I'm glad. Good, yeah. That's exactly, I mean, we breathe, of course, right? It's an autonomic activity that we're engaged in. We're constantly breathing, but being able to take a pause and really focus on inhaling and holding your breath and exhaling. Some people even do it, there's a particular pattern. They'll breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth, and everybody does it a little bit differently. So that's something you can do. You can go to that quietkit.com and you can just, that blue dot is right on the screen, and you can just do it for as long as you want, as many rounds as you feel you need to, and return to it as many times as you'd like to. So good, I'm glad that you had a wonderful experience with that. So we are going to be doing 5 different sessions over the course of the next several weeks. We're starting out today with the trauma-informed workplace. I'm also going to be covering strengthening emotional intelligence, cultivating mental fitness. I'm going to be talking about the 5 different styles of conflict management, and also navigating uncertainty so that we can avoid burnout. Burnout is now considered an occupational hazard by the World Health Organization. So it's definitely risen to the level where people are paying attention at a global level. So we want to try and find ways to avoid burnout. So let's talk a little bit more about what is a trauma-informed workplace, by first talking about what is just being trauma-informed. What does that mean? So when we talk about being trauma-informed, there are the 3 E's of trauma, and I'll talk a bit more about that. There's the 6 guiding principles of being trauma-informed, and then there's a way in which we can bring this trauma-informed lens that we can see through into our workplace, particularly as supervisors and managers. Right, so basically bringing awareness of what trauma is and how it impacts people into the workplace will improve the conditions of the working environment for everyone. So it can impact us in lowering our stress levels. It can also induce more collaboration on teams in the workplace and between teams. And also it can encourage people to feel more empowered in the workplace. So let's jump into looking at what are the 3 E's of trauma. So the 3 E's of trauma are events, experience, and effect. And you can see how an event occurs, and it influences how we experience what we're experiencing, and then how the effects of it, how we feel about it and what we do about it, right? So when a person is exposed to a traumatic or stressful event, how they experience it greatly influences the long-lasting adverse effects, right, of carrying the weight of that trauma, especially if there's no intervention that interrupts, and it just grows and grows and grows, right? So these effects can include changes in our neurobiological makeup, right? Difficulty with coping, feeling the ability to trust other people, managing our cognitive processes, right? The things that we need to do with our mind in the workplace while we're driving a car. There's a lot of, times when we're using that, regulating our behavior or our actions, right? The ability to build rapport with other people, that gets damaged, right? So these traumatic events can forge neural pathways. So what happens is, you might have heard of the term neuroplasticity. Something happens in our life and we react or respond to it. And something is happening on our brain, a little signal fires off and it makes a connection. And so the next time we have an experience that is similar, it looks similar, it sounds similar, it smells similar, meaning the environment has a smell to it. We have a particular feeling, right? The limbic brain, right? The most primal part of our brain, which is the threat detection system of our part of our brain that says danger, 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 fight, freeze, flee, or fawn, which means to people please or make people happy and laugh, right? That just goes off and it says you're in danger, but we have to step back and really assess the situation. Are we in danger? Or is our brain just telling us we're in danger because it's remembering that time before when we were in danger? And this is so similar, our brain provides us this little shortcut that says you're in danger, but we're not always in danger when we get the signal that we're in danger. And so we can disrupt that signal, but it takes attentiveness. So here are the 6 guiding principles of being trauma informed. So when people say, you know, I'm a trauma informed clinician, or this is the trauma informed school, or we want to be a trauma informed workplace, basically what they're talking about is these 6 guiding principles. So with safety, it's talking about developing settings and activities that ensure physical and emotional safety. Trustworthiness is about establishing transparent expectations. Respect and peer support is about individuals with shared experiences are integrated and are viewed as, and your individuals are viewed as an integral member, right, of the workplace, of the team, of the department. Collaboration is about maximizing shared decision-making, right? It's not a top-down decision-making environment. Empowerment is about building on strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses, right? In a therapeutic sense, you'd call that a strengths-based lens or clinician or intervention model. In the workplace, there are actually these consultants that go in and they want to look at what's working, not what's not working, right? It's a very different frame of reference when you go into the workplace and say, okay, what's working? Let's look at everything that's working and let's build more of that. And those things that aren't working, they'll either fall off or they'll diminish to the level that it won't matter as much anymore, right? So, and then choice is about being informed about the many pathways from which we have to choose, right? And so in our personal lives, our professional lives, with our peer group and our families and our relationships, right? Knowing that we have this ability to make choices. If we feel like we're not able to make choices, then we're going to feel stuck, we're going to feel trapped, and that's going to trigger off this danger, you know, this danger system in our brain. So those are the 6 guiding principles of being trauma informed. Now, you could go and spend a whole 8-hour day or 2 or 3 and learn nothing but all of this in great, great detail. I'm covering this in a very brief, you know, not very deep way, but just to let you know that these are things that can be brought into the workplace. And there are trainers who bring this into the workplace. Let me make sure I didn't skip one. Nope, it did go that way. Okay, so one kind of trauma is called adverse childhood experiences. And many people have not heard of this. And so I wanted to be able to at least cover it. So this is one of the largest investigations, right? The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study is one of the largest investigations of child abuse and neglect and household challenges, how it impacts our life, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being late into our life. And so the original ACE study you can see there on the screen was conducted at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego, California between 1995 and 1997. They collected data in 2 waves, and over 17,000 members of Kaiser Permanente or patients of Kaiser Permanente were involved in that study. It was very large, right? And so nowadays, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study and all of the tools and techniques and trainings that come from that are now with the CDC. So the CDC now is the home of the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study and all of the curriculum they've developed and all of the studies that they're doing and all of the trainings that they're doing. They're taking these ideas now into being like a trauma-informed school, a trauma-informed prison, a trauma-informed substance program, a trauma-informed homeless services program, trauma-informed hospital. So they're taking this notion of trauma-informed into all kinds of settings, but a lot of people aren't taking it into workplaces unless that workplace happens to be a hospital, a clinic, a social service agency. But there's no reason why we can't bring these ideas into the corporate setting. People who are working in corporate settings are experiencing trauma too, or have experienced trauma, right? So when they look at these adverse childhood experiences, what they find is that the original questionnaire for this study had just 10 questions on it. And it was looking at things that had to do with physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, mental illness in the immediate family, addiction in the immediate family, incarceration in the immediate family, abuse between the adults in the home, between the siblings in the home, and also the loss of a parent to death or divorce or separation. And so it was basically a yes or no. Did you experience this, this, and this? And they found that anybody who had at least 5 yeses out of 10 were significantly more likely to experience in their adult years homelessness, addiction, obesity, depression, heart disease, diabetes. It just went on and on and on, that they were able to find a complete causal link. Because if you look at the number again, 17,000 people, right? And so they looked at these 17,000 people, they looked at their ACE score, and they could see all of these health concerns and how it correlated to people with a 1 yes, 2 yeses, 3 yeses, 4, and it went like that. So this is something that a lot of people, when they end up going into therapy, a lot of times they're processing these adverse childhood experiences. And it's great to go into therapy and process these, but a lot of this is going to be with us into our old age. And there's certain things that happen when we're exposed to these abuses as children that release all kinds of chemicals into our body that just sort of set the course. And it's sort of like smoking. You can quit smoking and you don't have the accumulated problem with the addition of nicotine and tar, but you still smoked and it still has a lasting impact. So do adverse childhood experiences. So this is something that, it's just something good to know, that something may have happened in your childhood, or people or you're in relationship with, something happened to their childhood, but life seems to be going along just fine now. You don't undo these experiences. They sort of imprint on us. They imprint on our bodies. They imprint on our minds. It doesn't mean we can't be successful and have a loving relationship, but somehow it just imprints, it overlays. It's quite fascinating. Again, you can spend another day or two just learning all about the ACEs, the ACE study, and more about that. But I wanted to at least introduce that to you, just so that you know that if you're really struggling and you're like, what is happening? Maybe if you go online, you could take the ACE study questionnaire, you can answer and see what your score is. And that might be really helpful for you to understand what's going on in your life and why. So when I talk about how we can bring these issues into the workplace, what I mean is that we can have supervisors trained in how to be trauma-informed. We can have managers, we can have directors trained in how to be trauma-informed. And so why would we need that? Well, because it's gonna help reduce burnout in the workplace, right? Because if our supervisors and managers and directors are attentive to our workloads, and how our work and family balance is or is not, balancing out, then we might end up with burnout. So, paying attention to somebody else, paying attention to that, not only yourself, right? It also promotes retention. When people feel like the people they're working for and with are paying attention and have concern, or they care about you, you're more likely to want to stay in that job, right? You're more likely feeling like it's a place that you belong. It's a place that you can grow. It's a place that you can sort of stretch your wings a little bit and integrate in, and pose new ideas and have people listen to you, right? It It helps you feel better about yourself, and therefore you're going to be able to contribute better and then want to stay with that job. It also enhances employee well-being, right? So it can influence several things. It can influence more effective coping strategies in the workplace. It can enhance worker well-being in the sense of facilitating the different support that we need and the dissemination of best practices around how to assist people in the workplace, not only get our job done. Clearly we want to get our job done, but there's so much happening. We spend so much time at work, and we're around a lot of other people, whether it's in the office or virtually now for a lot of us. We're still interacting. We might be part of a team, part of a department, part of a division, maybe all those things. We might have a bunch of self-report, people that are reporting to us, a lot of people we report to, a lot of projects that we're working on. And so that can get really stressful. And so when we have a supervisor who's not only tracking the productivity, right, measurements, but they're also looking at how we are, how they can be able to notice if we are on edge, if we seem tired, if our motivation seems to have gone down, if our energy has gone down, right? They're going to be attentive to that and not see it as a strike against us. They're going to wonder, what's going on? Because a lot of us are not only going to work, we're also raising children, and we have spouses or partners. Some of us, like myself, is caring for an elderly parent with dementia. Some people are trying to make ends meet. Some people are doing all those things, right? And so some people are managing health conditions, right? Mental illness, people that they love around them with addiction issues. I mean, there's a lot going on. And now when you look out into society, there's a lot of social unrest, locally, regionally, nationally, globally. So this affects us on so many different levels. And thankfully, I think one of the positive things to come out of the COVID pandemic was that everybody got sent home, or largely got sent home. And all of a sudden our employers had to start paying attention to, okay, so this person does this job, I expect this from them, their productivity is this, but they're also have their kids at home, and their kids are trying to be in school while the parent is working, and not everybody had internet access. And right, there was a whole lot of things that were happening. People were getting sick, and there was stress about not being able to visit with loved ones in the hospital and nursing homes. And you remember, it was a difficult time. And so when we bring trauma-informed principles into the workplace, especially when our supervisors, our managers, and our directors are trained in this, and they can use this, right? They can apply this lens in how they are assessing and evaluating their employees, not just on productivity, but these other issues as well, right? What they're going to be able to do is bring in a collaborative approach, because it's you and them working together, right? You're working collaboratively, meaning you're letting them know what's going on with you, and they're aware of it, and they're not concerned in the sense that they're concerned about you as a person. They're not concerned that the bottom dollar is the main issue to be paying attention to, right? Somebody's worrying about that, of course. So let's say you're in a meeting with your supervisor. And what a trauma-informed supervisor can do is offer what's called reflective listening, right? And so reflective listening is where you ask somebody, how are you doing? What's going on? What would you like to talk about? And then you just take it in. And then you repeat back in your own words, right? They would repeat back in their own words what they're hearing, right? It's like a reflection back to you, oh, it really sounds like you're juggling, a lot of really difficult things, or it sounds like you have your hands full, however people are going to say it. So then you can be like, yes, or no, right? Then we feel heard, we feel seen, we feel affirmed in the fact that we really want to do a great job, and we are struggling. We're under the weather. We have all these extra things in our lives that are going on. Right. And when we can have a supervisor who does that, right, what they're going to be able to do is then affirm, right? They're going to be able to affirm the strengths right? So they're going to be able to notice, well, I've noticed you've still been hitting your deadline, so that's fantastic, right? And I can see that you delegated some duties, and I really appreciate that, and that's really good. And and so they can start pointing out all of your strengths, because oftentimes what we end up doing is we fall into this trap of, I'm not enough, I'm not doing enough, I'm replaceable, I don't want to get fired. If I get fired, then I'm going to lose my income. And if I lose my, right, it just goes downhill from there, right? It's like an avalanche of worries and concerns. So when they're able to focus on our strengths, then feed back to us reflectively what it is they see as our strengths, then that can help us build confidence. That brings that empowerment piece into the work that we're doing. I wanted to go back just a little bit to talk a little bit more about these adverse childhood experiences, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the findings again. I wasn't sure if I'd have enough time, but I do have enough time to really dig in a little bit about how, with the adverse childhood experiences study, what they found is that, how many out of these 10 experiences we have as children. So this is between the ages of 0 to 17. That's how that was the age range that they gave, right? That it has a tremendous impact, not only on our well-being physically and mentally, but it also has a direct causation with future violence. That's either being the victim of violence or the perpetrator of violence, right? Or both, right? Which is more common. It's more common for people to be both victim and perpetrator of violence, right? Most domestic violence situations is mutual violence. It's not always sort of the Lifetime movie version of domestic violence. Typically, it's mutual violence. And then, of course, the lifelong health issues that I already mentioned. And then other issues that have to do with our ability to connect with other people emotionally, physically, socially, right? It can cause us to have put walls up, and because we have a hard time trusting people. I mean, that makes sense, right? If when we're little children, the people we're supposed to be able to count on, rely on, and that are supposed to be there for us and provide for every single one of our needs, right? That's their job, right? We're helpless without them when we're babies. And if they don't do that, we internalize, and our brain sets off these chemicals that tell us, like, we're not safe, nobody's coming to our rescue, right? And that gets locked in there. We don't have a conscious memory of it. It's a pro and con about that, right? There's a way in which being able to remember it might help us feel some sort of relief about, why is my life so out of sorts? Like, why can't I get a good night's sleep? Or why am I in constant conflict? Or why do I feel like I'm constantly being terrorized, right? That danger, but nothing's really going on, right? It's because we have these automatic signals that are being sent off in our brain. So what else did I want to say about that? The reason to have these trauma-informed environments, whether it's a school, a prison, a homeless shelter, or a place of business, a hospital, is because the goal really is to prevent adverse childhood experiences, right? So if you're working with somebody, let's say you're a supervisor, and you're working with somebody, and you can tell they are under a whole lot of stress. It's not just work. You can tell there's something else going on, right? The ability to intervene in that person's life could cause a disruption in their poor coping mechanisms, in which they would become now the parent that's perpetrating that abuse, right? Because the coping mechanisms are something that we have to develop over the course of our lifetime, and we don't all have opportunities to do that. These are not innate, right? Coping mechanisms are things that we developed sort of on the spot, right? Something terrible is happening to us when we're 7, we develop a coping mechanism, and every time that happens to us going forward in life, we just pull out that coping mechanism and we apply it. It might work when we're 8, maybe when we're 18. By the time we're 28, it's ruining every relationship we're in, right? It's getting in the way. So we need a new coping mechanism. But how do we get a new coping mechanism? Right. So that's why some of the other webinars that I'm going to be touching on are going to be talking about that, how to resolve conflict, how to avoid burnout, how to navigate uncertainty, how to build your emotional resilience, right? Because in this webinar, we're talking about like some of the foundation for why might my life not be going in the way that I wish it was, that it's supposedly supposed to be, like I see on Instagram or, you know, read in the magazines. It's because one, a lot of that is fake, but two, it's because we have trauma in our lives, especially within LGBTQ community, right? We have the regular kinds of traumas that people have, and overlaid on top of that, we might have family rejection, family estrangement. We're dealing with social stigma. We're dealing with perhaps if we're, you know, growing up in a religious context, we're being rejected by our family based on religion, or our religious community is rejecting us. And so a lot of people are going to turn to certain coping mechanisms or soothing activities like drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, doing drugs, engaging in risky behavior, taking in high quantities of really fatty foods, salty foods, sweet foods, because these are satiating activities, right? Binge watching your favorite television show that makes you laugh. These are satiating. They sort of take us away from the burden of the pain and the trauma, but they're temporary, right? What helps us in a more permanent way is to be able to manage conflict, communicate effectively, navigate distress, regulate emotion, get good night's sleep, right? So these are all the things that we will be covering over the course of the next several weeks. I wanted to leave plenty of time for Q&A because one, I'm introducing a topic that might be very unfamiliar to you. And you might have some questions where I can provide some real practical tools and strategies. So I'd love to be able to do that now. And let's take as much time as we can to really deal with the, you know, with questions and answers. And then I'm going to do some wrap up where I'm going to be talking to you about some self-care activities that you can be doing. And I also then want to get your feedback about how this whole session went. And then I'll provide you with one of those little, I forget what they're called. You'll see it on the screen, right? It's you put your phone up to it and take a picture of what a QR code. Sorry, I'm old. I don't use those things. So let's just open it up now to any questions that people might have. Are we using the Q&A or the chat? Let's see. I can open a chat. Yeah, you can send questions just to me by clicking the little arrow next to the word everyone, sending it just to the host panelist. I'll read it out loud, but I won't say the name of the person. If people want to ask a question in more confidence, please do. But like, so you've heard a lot about, you know, there are a lot of reasons why things might not be going the way you really want them to be going in your life. And you might feel like you can't figure out why, right? And so maybe something that I covered, that I talked about, somewhat explains it, but you're still unsure. Oh, okay, so not chat box, Q&A. I've got to pick one or the other so I can, okay, let's see. So the problem with Q&A is I don't know if this is to be confidential or not. So I'll just read the question. So the question is, how can we shift our practices or habits from self-soothing to self-care? I'll be talking about that. So thanks for that question. That will be coming up after this particular section. I wanted to be able to go really in depth on self-care and self-soothing as a separate section. So I'll touch on that. Thank you for asking. Any suggestions on strategies to bring awareness of the need to raise trauma awareness in the workplace? Well, if you go to the CDC website and you look up trauma-informed, there's like a whole section on the CDC website that talks about what does it mean to be trauma-informed. And then throughout that section, you'll find that there are different ways it's being applied. It's being applied in schools, right? Primary and secondary level. It's also being applied in hospital settings. It's being applied in prison settings, substance treatment settings. So it's being, foster care systems. So they're starting to bring these ideas into the workplace. And so one way to do it might be to get some information and see if you can do a presentation, right? Maybe if you're part of an ERG, maybe your ERG can do a presentation similar to this, but going into, the specifics, more specifics, perhaps. One of the things that you can do is to, let's see. Some places do this. You'd probably have to get permission for it. I would imagine they'd want you to, but some workplaces actually send out the ACEs questionnaire. Again, there's 10 questions on it. There are some new questionnaires that have been adapted to be a bit more inclusive to different kinds of issues to deal with race and immigrant status and some other things. But the original is just 10 questions, and it's quite informative. So these other ones are good, but the original's fine. And so some places like to actually do that. They'll have a whole team take the ACEs study, and then they'll have somebody there to help people understand what does that score mean and what can you do, right? It's not as if we just have to be resolved to, well, I got a 6 out of a 10. That's it for me. Like the rest of my life is just, a nothing. No, definitely not. There's so many things we can do. And so some people, there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but definitely check out the CDC website and see if there's a way that you could take some of that information and bring it in to a team meeting, talk directly one-on-one with your supervisor or manager about it, and see if they might be interested. I think that's a really wonderful thing to be able to do, because again, it is being integrated into a lot of workplaces. Are there any resources that I can take away on self-care, self-focus, or burnout? We're going to be talking about burnout in another webinar. So please come back to the Navigating Uncertainty and Avoiding Burnout. So come to that webinar to learn more about burnout. Self-care, I'll be going over in a little bit. And self-focus. So for self-focus, I don't know exactly what that means, but perhaps the webinar that I'll be doing that's focusing on emotional intelligence and mental fitness, right? Or that particular webinar is going to have a self-focused perspective. If you mean something different than that, let me know. But there will be another webinar for that. For people who already work in trauma-informed care settings, I work for homeless services, fantastic. What if you have issues of talking in general, as in someone notices you are reacting away, wants to bring it up to you, but you just can't seem to let it out? Let's see. As in someone notices you are reacting away. So you're reacting to something rather than responding. That's what I'm taking from it, right? More of a knee-jerk reaction, not a pause, think it over response. Make sure I'm getting that correctly. And wants to bring it up to you. So they're seeing maybe that somebody's overreacting or being sort of hypersensitive, hypervigilant perhaps, but you just can't seem to let it out. I'm a little confused by the question. It's written in such a way that it's not making sense to me. So let's say I'm the person that's reacting and somebody brings it up to me, but I'm having trouble letting it out. That's kind of how I'm reading the question. Let me know if I'm off base. Well, that's because I would imagine, one, you have to have trust, right? You have trust of the people who are bringing something up. How it's being brought up might not be in a way that feels safe. Some people don't want to talk about things at work, right? So people maybe take things to therapy or back home to their spouse, their partner, a good friend, right? So yeah, that's a difficult question to answer, actually. I don't feel like I have a solid answer for that. We might have to talk about that later. Let me know if I got or missed the focus of the question. Well, I'm going to move on. Do you have any literature you would recommend for folks in ERGs or personal development regarding this issue? Again, yeah, CDC. Go to CDC, look up the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, look up trauma-informed care, and you'll find a whole lot of information there. There's some places you can go that are specific, like SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration for the US government. They have trauma-informed care resources that are specific to that kind of setting. Right. And so there's in the Department of Justice, there's some trauma-informed care stuff that's going on there. And so there's very different ones, but the CDC kind of has more of the broader focus of looking at trauma-informed care, especially from the adverse childhood experiences lens. So you can find, you know, PDFs to print out or to get a copy of and send out via email and encourage people to read them. You can introduce topics, you know, you can have people come together to talk about how you can focus on, you know, the individuals in your ERG, how have they been impacted by trauma, and how is that then impacting their ability to feel like they can belong to something, right? Because if we have difficulty, if we've had a lot of trauma and we have difficulty establishing rapport and building trust and trusting other people, they could be rolling out the red carpet for us for everything about inclusion and belonging, and we still won't feel like we belong and are being included because there's a gap there, right? That's not always going to be the case, but sometimes we have a difficult time hearing and seeing and feeling what is being provided, right? So we have to figure out, is it me? Is it them? Is there a combination there? We have to be able to sort that out for ourselves. Within a corporation, which area would be best suited to build a trauma-informed environment? If you have a large enough place of business that has a wellness program, you might want to do it there. There are within HR, I've seen some, you know, a lot of times the wellness programs are through HR. And so with DEI, absolutely, because you can build trauma-informed care or trauma-informed principles into the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, because a lot of the traumas that we may have experienced throughout our life are based on these points of key points of our identity and our life experiences around being accepted, not being accepted, you know, the stigma, things like that. So any of those settings, I would imagine that it depends on the size of your place of business. Do you have any suggestions for reducing stigma about talking about mental health issues in the workplace? I think that's naturally happening right now. I think the COVID pandemic and the lockdown it made that, it sort of forced it into the workplace. One of the ways that I know that this is happening is that prior to the pandemic, most major corporations had EAPs where somebody could call a number and they get referred to a therapist or a lawyer or somebody in town, right, that they could go talk to about certain issues they were having or financial issues. And then with the lockdown, the EAPs weren't working as well because they couldn't refer you to somebody in town to go to their office because people weren't working in their offices. So all of a sudden, all of these companies that had, some of them had already been started, but some of them sprung up in 2020 that were that what they provide is mental health employee benefits. That's it. Your company brings them on as a benefit to your employees, and then they have therapists and they have coaches and they have wellness webinars that are just available at different levels, right? Depending on if your company buys you 10 therapy sessions and 10 coaching sessions or 6 or 12, right? Every company has a different arrangement. But so this has really pushed things. And so that's been really helpful. So it's one thing you could do is you can invite your company to consider bringing on one of these mental health benefits companies like Spring Health, Modern Health, Lyra Health, Thrive, Better Up, right? These are some of the main ones that are out there. Again, Modern Health, Spring Health, Lyra Health, Thrive, and Better Up. Those are some of the primary ones. Disclaimer, I am a facilitator of wellness webinars for Modern Health, and I'm a care coach with Better Up. So just to let you know, disclaimer there. Next question. As a father of an adult who came out to me a year ago, other than love and acceptance, what can I do to help support him emotionally? Well, you're already more than halfway there with the love and acceptance. I would recommend looking into the Family Acceptance Project. It's a project that's based out of the California State University of San Francisco, or San Francisco State University. And so Family Acceptance Project, they've done a lot of research. They have a lot of connections into the community. So there are a lot of those things. Another thing is, getting involved with PFLAG and some other organizations like that, pflag.org. If it's trans, TIFA.org, or I'm a TIFA. TIFA stands for Trans Youth Family Allies. So there's a lot of different options along those lines. And maybe they need to talk to a therapist, not because there's something wrong with them, but because they need that kind of support where they can go and talk to somebody that's not a member of their family, just somebody as a sounding board. That can be really helpful for people. Can you refer to any white papers, business cases that quantify the benefit of becoming a trauma-informed workplace? No, I cannot. That is not within my scope of practice. I'm a clinician. I'm not a researcher or an academic, so I do not have access to any of those kinds of things. But let's see, where might they be? Well, I would imagine the CDC website. If you go and look at the trauma-informed care and you go to SAMHSA, SAMHSA.gov, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration, SAMHSA.gov. There's probably some case studies, white papers. I don't know about business case studies in particular. That might be something different. You'd have to look into, like bringing wellness into the workplace. It has to do with emotional wellness, not just physical wellness, not just yoga classes and climbing walls and gym membership reimbursement. Okay, so that's it for the Q&A. I'm going to jump over to the wrap up, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about self-care versus self-soothing. I'm going to get your feedback on how this experience was for you. And then I'm going to tell you what we're going to be talking about in the next webinar. So a little bit about self-care versus self-soothing. So the difference basically is this. A self-care activity is an activity that you do on a regular basis that has long-term benefit. Right? Long-term benefit. Self-soothing is something that you do, and in the moment, and maybe for an hour or two, or maybe that day, you feel calm, you feel soothed, right? So we want to be doing both of those things. It's not an either or. We want to be doing both of those things. So some people are doing a lot of self-soothing and they think it's self-care. So self-soothing might be something like, sitting down on the couch and watching 3 or 4 episodes of your favorite program, right? That is very soothing. It takes your mind off of whatever is bothering you. That's not self-care though, right? That's a temporary thing. Doing some stretching activity, right? If you do it periodically, that'll be soothing. If you do it on a regular basis, that will be a care issue, right? Self-soothing might look like treating yourself out to a nice meal, going to a movie, getting a massage, right? Taking a spa day, sitting in a jacuzzi, right? These kinds of things are self-soothing, but they're not self-care. Self-care is paying attention to staying hydrated, eating healthy foods, finding ways to navigate distress and regulate emotion. It's about making sure you're getting really good night's sleep. Sleep is probably the most important part of wellness. If our sleep rhythms are dysregulated, almost every other system in our body is dysregulated. Our ability to respond to a virus, our ability to regulate our emotion, our ability to regulate our blood sugar levels, our ability to regulate our weight. All these things are connected to what's called the circadian rhythm, and that has to do with sleep, right? So self-care activities you can participate in that have long-term benefit: therapy, going to exercise classes, getting involved in a support group, right? Things that you're going to do on a regular basis that have long-term impact. Self-soothing, short-term. I'm seeing there's a lot more now in Q&A and some things even in chat, but I'm going to go now to feedback. So maybe within the feedback section, I can hear from you about what this experience was like for you. I want to make sure to be able to have the feedback part of this. We're going to do this in every single webinar, because I want to make sure to be able to fit into each webinar that comes after this one, those pieces of feedback. So how was this experience for you? Let's use the chat box for that. I didn't officially close it, but I'm not looking at it. I can't, I don't have the ability to do that. I mean, technically I do, but my brain, talking, watching chat box and Q&A, I can get some help for that, but I can't do that on my own. So let me open this up a little bit so I can see it. So people are saying enlightening, informative, best webinar I've been to. Thank you for the captioning, very welcome. Really great stuff, meaningful, important. Thank you, Xander, for your leadership. Very welcome, thank you. And yeah, there's a survey also. So I was gonna show you a little image, the little QR thing. Great, extremely helpful. Right, so this is a lot of really great positive feedback. I really appreciate that. What you can do is if you have something that's a bit more on the nose, a bit more critical, something you need a little more time to really think it through, please do give me that constructive feedback on that survey that was just put into the chat box. Helpful, thank you. Really like the focused material. It was really great. Can't wait to attend the rest. Fantastic. Very insightful, helpful that you opened my eyes to this and connected me to resources. Fantastic. You made what felt like an intimidating topic very accessible, right? Thank you. It's hard to know if I'm actually doing that until I hear the feedback. So thank you for that feedback. Would be nice to have seen a slide with the URLs included. Ooh, what does that mean? Which URLs? Oh, got it. So the websites. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, cdc.gov, or do a Google search on Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. But yeah, okay, URL links. Thank you for that. Loved it. SAMHSA, so it's Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration. So take the first letters of those, Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration. So I can't do that in my head right now, but it's SAMH perhaps, right? So take the letters, Substance Abuse Mental Health Administration.gov. We'll also add links when we share the recording and post. Great, thank you so much, Isabel. Excellent. No, I don't think that's it. I think it would be SAMHA.gov. I don't think administration is spelled out unless they change the URL. Unless they changed it, and they may have. No, SAMH, Substance Abuse Mental Health, SAMHA, SAMH. Hopefully that's it. So SAMHSA, so the trauma-informed information on there is going to be specific to addiction and addiction treatment facilities and centers and programs. CDC is going to be more a broader thing, looking at healthcare, but from the emotional, the physical, the mental, the cognitive well-being. Thank you, thank you. SAMHSA.gov, CDC.gov. SAMHSA is right. So the SAMHSA and CDC are part of the Health and Human Services Department for the federal government. Let me see, I'm going to go back into, let's see what the Q&A, let me move that over. Is there anything else? Oh, wait, let's see. How would you handle a leader with low emotional intelligence that does not change their what? Behavior, attitude, thought, something like that, based on your feedback to them that their actions do not create a safe space for people. Well, one of the things about emotional intelligence is that we do more listening than talking. So my advice to you would be, my suggestion would be to inquire more than ask, more than give information. Because most of us have low emotional intelligence. So we have to be a little more humble about that. And so it might be actually that they just have a different set of values from you. They might have a different worldview or paradigm with which they make sense of the world. And that is just true across the board. We have different morals, we have different principles we live by, different values, we have different worldviews. And so we're not necessarily going to be able to bring people to our side or to fully understand. That might not be possible. So sometimes what we have to do, and I talk about this in the conflict management webinar, so definitely check that out. Sometimes we have to find a way to collaborate on things rather than say, you need to come to me. We might need to come a bit more in the middle of that. So let's see, is there anything else? Oh, good. So people are putting some. Oh, thank you, Q, for putting that. So there's a link now in there to register for the next webinar. And now, oh, thank you so much for the CDC.gov link. Perfect. Really appreciate that. So let me tell you a little bit more. So the next time we come together, we're going to be talking about strengthening emotional intelligence. Strengthening emotional intelligence. And so if you've never been through an EQ training, you might want to take a little time on your own between now and then. Go check out what EQ is, right? Emotional intelligence. Maybe take an online assessment or test and see where your strengths and your weaknesses are, right? So strengthening emotional intelligence. So the components of emotional intelligence are self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Those are the primary components of emotional intelligence. And what's really wonderful about that is there's just so much give and take in IQ, right? In our more cognitive intelligence, but our emotional intelligence is something we can build on and build on and build on. It's not as if we've been handed a deck of cards and it says, that's it, that's all you got. No, we can learn more, we can grow, we can practice, we can challenge ourselves to become much more self-aware, much more self-regulated in our thoughts and our emotions, take responsibility for how we're reacting to things rather than sort of project it out and say, you know, the world has done me wrong, everybody's at fault, it's me, I'm a victim of everything, right? Emotional intelligence would say, no, we have so much choice in that matter, right? Learning about what motivates us, what motivates other people, how to build empathy for ourselves through self-compassion, how to have empathy for other people who also have trauma in their lives, right? It's not just us, it's almost everybody, right? Different levels of trauma. So that empathy is a really key piece. And then social skills, because in addition to self-awareness is social awareness, being able to read your environment and connect with other people. So here is that QR code. For those of you who have those fancy phones and can take a little screenshot of that, that will take you to the survey. The link was in the chat box, but that will take you to the survey directly. That's my understanding of that technology, at least. Hope I'm correct. Hope I'm correct. Let's see, is there something else? Something popped up in the chat box. Oh, thank you. It's Q repeated the survey again. Thank you, Q. And I am correct about the good. It took you there. Thank you so much for that feedback. Excellent. Well, it has been a true honor and joy to be able to present to you today and to talk to you about something that is, you know, somewhat of a challenging topic. And I appreciate your feedback. I look forward to more feedback through the survey. So thank you so much for providing that. And I do look forward to seeing you at the other webinars. I hope you can attend all the next 4. There's so much that we're going to be covering. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement in chat. Thank you for providing all of those links and reminding me to put some links in. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a